Hey everyone, it's the Our Shawn. Welcome to another edition of the Women Business Leaders Show. Our goal is to bring you, leaders in business, primarily women, lessons that will help you up your leadership. And what do? We look for experts and other leaders that can help transfer lessons. And today we have Laverde joining us. She's going to be talking about how you plan for the future for yourself, for your loved ones, to really make sure you're putting all those pieces together. If we look at the statistics, women in business have a disproportionate percentage of the family care obligations. They tend to jump in more and have more responsibilities in that area when we look at the statistical studies. So it puts extra pressure on it. So it's something for all of us to be aware of, whether we are men or women, to think about how can we build the right systems behind us to make things easier. So Joy's going to be jumping into that a little bit. Joining me today is my regular co-host, Casey Hasten, VIP Search Group. She helps people with all their recruiting needs, gets the right people matched to the right job. She has a lot of great insights on kind of how do we manage businesses, how do we manage teams. So it's always fantastic to record with her. We'll get some great insights from her as we go. I'm the Our Shawn. I'm the guy about the future of business. That's my whole world. How do we build better businesses for your future? What strategies do we have? What changes are coming? I practice as a corporate lawyer. I spend a lot of time working with people with their business plans, but then I do this show and others because I'm interested in getting the tools and the resources out there to folks to build the future of business. In that connection, we'd love to ask for your help. We're not sure where you're watching. You might be watching the Women Business Leaders Show on YouTube. You might be watching our podcast or listening to our podcast. You might be picking up this on Facebook. You might pick it up on one of our LinkedIn feeds. Wherever you're at, drop a couple comments. Let us know what you're learning from the show, what challenges you have, what content we can bring you, what specifically can we and Joy answer. We'll try to reply back to your comments. We want to hear from you. What's going on? What's happening out there? And since I am a lawyer, I have to give the disclaimer. We don't do legal advice and we don't do investment advice on our show. Everything here is just general education. Go consult your professional advisors for specific advice for your situation. Joy, thanks for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
Man, glad you're here. A lot of pressure on a lot of women in business. You know, they're trying to build a career, take care of family, take care of the parents. I mean, there's usually a lot of things going on. How do we put all these pieces together to make plans that work?
You know, I've been talking about family caregiving for over 30 years. And when I started back in the 80s, people didn't even know what elder care was because child care was the big thing. Mm-hmm. So we were all pretty safe, and the child care was an open discussion, and some of the companies actually put child care facilities on the grounds, and it was a really nice, you know, one big happy family, right? But then elder care started to creep in, and it took over as one of the number one employee issues. So then they tried the same thing with elder care, and they said, okay, maybe if we just put a little place where parents can come and be safe during the day, maybe that'll work. Well, everything just blew up. And people began to realize that it wasn't anything like childcare. And that the one thing that they kept forgetting was that they could actually begin conversations for planning, but they didn't know what to talk about. And that is where you start. So how you put it together is you look at all the things you have to plan for, and you go from there. And that's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, and we're just moving into a tricky environment, right? Because the extending lives and increasing medical care, so it's putting a lot of people in that, and women in particular, in that sandwich situation, right? You've got to take care of both the parents and the kids and take care of the career too, and all this pressure is all happening at once.
Serious juggling going on all at the same time. My number one advice for people who are just beginning to think about planning is to treat parents separately. Mm-hmm. What's going to work for one parent isn't going to work for the other. So you have to have a mindset of, okay, when I'm not talking to you, Mom, what are your needs? And Dad, when I'm talking to you, what are your needs? Mm-hmm. Can't lock them in together. What works for one doesn't work for the other.
Okay, well, that's a great starting point, right? So you've got plans for one or more children. You've got plans for one or more parents, right? And they're independent, but you have to make them all run parallel to each other.
Yeah, because nobody ages the same. So I'll even take all of this a step further. So let's say you haven't got any plans at all in place, but you know you have to do something. So in order of importance, the first thing you want to talk about is money. Who pays for what? Absolutely. You got to get on board with that. And again, treat each person you're dealing with separately. The second thing you have to talk about is housing. Again, housing is going to depend on specific needs. Sometimes parents are absolutely in perfect health until the day they die. And someone else who might be married to them might need a whole different level of care. So housing, where are they going to live? And then the third thing, which you're going to love, Shawn, is you got to get your legal paperwork in order.
Right. And because that can make a big difference, right? I mean, what you say in those documents can really determine the outcome. And as I'm thinking through this, I'm thinking, of course, not only do you have the parents and the kids, but then you have the siblings, right? So you may have brothers and sisters of your generation. We start talking about, managing care, managing living situations, managing assets. That's something that needs to be coordinated across the family with some tough conversations usually.
Oh yeah. So you bring up a real good point. So even before everything else, the best thing to do is to have a meeting with your siblings. No parents allowed. Everybody gets together and says, okay, we need to start talking about mom and dad, and let's all get on the same page. That in itself gets real tricky because some people are going to say, I don't want to do that. Mom and dad are fine. And other people are absolutely worried about it. So the best thing is to say something anyway and say, look, even if you don't want to be a part of it, I'm going to have this family meeting anyway, with or without you, because we have to do something, and you could jump in later. How's that?
Right. I mean, at least get ball started. Doesn't put things completely pigeonholed forever, right? Because at some point these things have to be dealt with.
Yeah, the worst. So I'm sorry, Casey, go ahead.
I was just going to say, my sisters and I recently had this conversation, and it was one that we avoided. We kept rescheduling, and we finally had it. And it was a very uncomfortable conversation, but one, like you said, that had to be had. And what is your advice to the siblings when they're going into that situation? Because we sure could have used some guidance.
Well, if you feel that you will need guidance, you can actually bring in a third party. You can bring in someone who is quite knowledgeable about the options. So you could bring in someone like a financial planner, let's say, or an attorney, or a geriatric case manager. That person can help facilitate the conversation. Even a social worker is really good at facilitating emotionally charged conversations between siblings. So that might have been one thing you could do. The other thing is keep in mind that even though our parents tell us that they don't love one child better than the other, there is a difference in who is more influential. And a lot of times we all know who that is. In my family, it was my little sister that my mom liked the best. And so we used to use her as the front guy. It worked great. So Casey, in your point, is there someone who does have more influence over one parent over the other? And think about it. You may not know.
Yes. I know who it is.
Yeah.
It's the middle sister. She's really bossy.
Yeah. Yeah. So we all know who it is.
Yeah. You think I'm bossy, Shawn?
No, you just said it on tape, though. You just said it on tape. It's going to be on the internet.
Okay. She knows. I tell her all the time.
It's now recorded for posterity.
Yep.
Joy, one thing that occurs to me, too, is not only do you have to have these conversations, but the timing's tricky on this, right? Particularly with the parents. I mean, children typically, barring something unusual, there's some progression, right? You can predict, what class they'll be in, some of the issues they're going to have. It's a little more of a predictable timeline. When will they start college? Parents, it's a little more unpredictable, right? I mean, this can be sudden changes and shifts.
Yeah.
How do you deal with it?
So this is goes against popular belief, which I'm all about.
Yes.
Most people bring up, out of the blue, conversations about, hey, mom, dad, we need to have a talk about your future. And they usually do it at Thanksgiving and Christmas and on some family occasion when they know everybody's going to get together. Biggest mistake you could ever make, because you're just catching them off guard. The best thing to do, and just tell this to your siblings, is, hey, next time we all get together at mom and dad's, let's just make observations. Let's collect evidence that certain things must be discussed. We can't make assumptions about anything, and our parents might be fine, And it might be all about us if we bring up stuff that isn't even happening with our parents. So the best advice I have is when you are physically present with your parents, make a mental note on some of the things you're seeing. And then have that conversation with your siblings and say, this is what I observed. How about you? And then at a later time, don't make the holidays a time where you got to talk about serious stuff. Talk about it after, when you've actually collected hardcore evidence that something has to be done.
Right. And depending on geography, I mean, I guess, technology like what we're talking about here, Zoom, right? I mean,
You got it.
you may only see your siblings once or twice a year. And if you want to keep that family holiday, focus on the family holiday, you can use a little technology along the way after the fact.
Exactly. But the thing is so many, we're all very concerned about our parents. And so we may say things that aren't true. And we can't do that. It can't put them on the hot seat. We really just have to have evidence that maybe they need to stop driving, maybe they're not eating right, maybe they're beginning to be more forgetful. But we have to say exactly what we observe. We can't make it up. And we need to stop scaring ourselves.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Is don't overthink it, right? I mean, this is a process. It's a thing to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And just having some of these tough conversations. What's the first step to just start this? I mean, how do you, so you talk about having observations. I mean, do you call your siblings up before Thanksgiving and say, hey, let's pay attention to what's going on? Or how do you even get this started?
That's exactly right. So it's hey, we're all going to be together, and I know we all think about mom and dad a lot, and we're wondering what might be the future. So let's all kind of be on the lookout and see what we might be seeing that we have to be concerned about. That'd be the first thing. You talk to each other before the holidays. Then you get back together after the holidays and say, what'd you see? What did mom say? Did she seem, next to you? And go from there. But then the next step, of course, is talking to parents. But it's a lot easier when you say, hey, Mom, when we were together at Christmas, I noticed that you were having a really hard time with getting dressed. Is that hard for you? Can you tell me, do you think that's what's happening? We just have to ask questions. We can't say, hey, it was really clear to me that you need help. You couldn't even get yourself dressed. I mean, imagine being on the other side of that conversation.
Right. Yes. So what do you recommend for the sudden planning part of this, right? I mean, so there's the other piece of this is, some things may hit suddenly. Should siblings be having these conversations before there's a problem, or do you recommend it's maybe too sensitive to talk about beforehand? What do you say?
You definitely have to have conversations beforehand, but just remember, Shawn, there is no planning in a crisis.
Yes.
Something happens, you're kicking into gear. You get on the phone with a doctor, with a lawyer, with a financial planner. You are in motion. The sad part is you don't have many choices. You're now leaning heavily on experts to help you out in these situations.
Right. Well, yes, definitely an emergency. I just, I'm thinking, in fact, you can some of this can be a little bit anticipated, right? I mean, if your parents have hit a certain age, to become more likely there's going to be a problem, right? So.
Well, it's funny you should say age, because age doesn't have anything to do with it. Like my 91-year-old mother was absolutely the most independent treadmill walking person you ever saw, and cooking the day she died. So it has nothing to do with age, but it does have to do with observing how someone is aging. I mean, I have 50-year-olds who can't get out of bed, so.
Right. Okay, so another aspect that comes up a lot, and I know people get tied up in this, and maybe some of our viewing audience may be in that situation as well, is within a family business, right? So we have, parents and siblings that are somehow working together, which I guess just adds another layer of complexity to this planning, right? Of, how does the business continue to run? Where does the income go? Who takes the ownership? I've seen a lot of fights over that in my legal career.
I'm sure you have. Everything's got to be in writing, and everybody's just, the people who own the business are the ones that have complete control over who does what and who gets it.
And it's often mom and dad. The problem is mom and dad have to pick, one or more siblings to run the business, and then those siblings have to jump in and want to run the business, right? So we've got kind of a two-way issue here, right?
Yeah, we could be the mom and dad that own the business in that situation too. So we really have to put it in writing. We have to do a lot of thinking and make some tough decisions.
Yeah, and
Like
really.
before, one of our children may be more capable of being a business person than the other, and it's just the way it is. But it does cause family problems.
Well, and then what I've seen in some situations is, okay, so they pick, sibling 1 to run the business, and then sibling 2 and 3 then get upset because they say, well, you're running the business, you're paying yourself a salary, I'm not making that big of a dividend off the business, and everybody's fighting. So, because everybody thinks the other person's trying to get one over. And so
there you go.
And having those tough conversations sooner than later, I think would really set that up.
Right. Yeah.
Casey, in the recruiting world, you want to bring in some of the recruiting aspect of this? I mean, when people are changing jobs or thinking about careers, how does these things really play into it?
As far as planning for the future, for your elders,
planning for their family care, whatever that might be.
Care, it's a big deal because, obviously I can't ask the question, do you have children? Are you married? Those are not allowed. But eventually that will come out. Somebody may tell me they want work-life balance, and come to find out they've got to pick their kid up at 4, right? Mm-hmm. So, but we do see that a lot with the parents too. I just worked with a candidate the other day who was having to change jobs because he was moving his mom in with him and his wife because she needed constant care. And so he couldn't maintain the level of hours he was in public accounting that he was putting in and help his wife take care of his mom. So yeah, I mean, it definitely affects our candidates personally.
Yeah, it's just something that everybody's got to be aware of, right? Joy, looks like you.
Yeah. Elder care is like a glass ceiling in corporate America. Some people know it's not safe to talk about it, and other people do. It depends on the culture of your company. And a lot of times, whoever we work for, and if they are older than us, they're definitely dealing with elder care in some way, shape, or form. But if they're not talking about it, most women that I know won't even bring it up. They'll say they're going to take a sick day, and really they're taking mom to the doctor.
Yep.
Safety in corporate America is not a given.
No, absolutely not. So I have a question for you. So it sounds like you're a pioneer in this movement. And I read somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, that you kind of started this movement called Let's Eat Together.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, the book started the movement. What happened is I have a chapter in the book called Thoughts to Chew On and Eating Meals Together. And one of the things I kept hearing over and over again as I was researching the book was, how can people make it easy on themselves to get to know people? Because we're pretty much, the longer we live, the more we're going to outlive our friends and family. We're going to have to do a constant regrouping of friends that we can trust in our lives. But it isn't easy to make friends, especially as we get older. The Let's Eat Together movement is really simple. You just keep inviting people to share a meal. Whether you have a potluck dinner at your house, or you have people come, you make it a point to go to someone's house. Usually being at someone's house is better than being at a restaurant. It's cheaper, and you can hear each other think. I read about this one woman who is a single mom, and she has a teenage daughter, and she realized that they were quite alone in this apartment building. So one night they decided to have a meal in the hallway of their apartment. And they did it, of course, during dinner time. And as people came out of their apartments to go out for one reason or another in the evening, they'd say, hey, before you go, come on, have some hors d'oeuvres with us. Have a piece of chicken. And pretty soon they did this on a regular basis. They got to know everybody on their floor.
Is that the picture that you have up on your website?
Yeah.
The one where I was like, why is that so skinny? So I'm so glad you explained that.
So this is, it's a hallway. So people are getting quite creative. We'll probably see more restaurants that you see in Europe, where there are benches And then so it's like one long table, and then there's a long line of benches where it's like community eating at a restaurant. And you just sit down and you're sitting next to complete strangers, you're all getting to know each other. Sharing meals is one of the best ways you can get to know people that are in your immediate surroundings. It's really fun too. All ages, you know?
I think it's a great idea.
We do, once a week, we have a team lunch for that very reason, just to away from the office, just to build that camaraderie and build the team up, and just to give us a chance to get to know each other better, because you're always moving so quickly at work, right? And that's our let down your hair time.
Yeah, there's nothing, there's food is love, right? Mm-hmm. Food is like family, and you forget being formal, and you just get together. I learned that coming from an Italian family, we do food very well. I mean, my mom used to invite the paper boy. This is a million years ago, when the paper boy used to come around and collect his pay, and he would come during dinner time. My mom would say, well, you're not getting paid until you sit down and have dinner with us. And it's really fun. So I learned a lot from my Italian heritage.
Yes.
That is awesome.
You had a lot of great tips, Joy, and I know you've got a couple of books out there. How do people find you, find your body of work, keep in touch with you?
The best thing to do is go on my website, elderindustry.com. And then on there's a zillion articles. People can find out where I'm going to be appearing next. Blogging, tips, you name it. This podcast will be on there. Lots of links. It's the easiest way.
Fantastic. I think that's great. I want to encourage people to go check that out. We love your comments, folks. So wherever you're watching, do let us know what you took away from the show, what questions you have, what specific situations we got. We'll ask Joy to come back on if we get the questions, because we'll come back and answer them. We want to service you, our viewers, listeners, make sure we get you the resources you need. Of course, feel free to reach out to me or Casey directly. You can also go to futureofwomeninbusiness.com. See our past episodes, see upcoming guests, get on our email list, get some resources from us, so go check that out. Joy, thanks for joining us. Viewers, pat yourself on the back for doing the hard work and investing in yourself, and we'll look forward to seeing you on future episodes soon.
See you later, everyone.
Thank you.